Hey, what's up guys, it's Renaldo here. So this video is going to focus on Jacob Zuma's lawyers saying that he'll never ever be able to repay the 28.9 million rand that he's used to defend himself in the courts. Yeah, so before we get into the details, please be sure to subscribe to this channel. The overwhelming majority of you that watch my content aren't subscribed. You can fix that by clicking the subscribe button below. It'll be greatly appreciated. That's right, so Jacob Zuma has now, through his lawyers, said that he won't be able to repay the 28.9 million rand of taxpayers' money that he has used to defend himself against the rape case, against the arms deal, against the state capture case that's still ongoing, that was ready already 4 years ago, but still hasn't started because of Jacob Zuma's Stalingrad approach in wanting to delay every single thing and take everything on appeal. And now we are in this situation where the state attorney has worked out that he owes 28.9 million rand that he has to pay back, and his lawyers are saying he can't. Well, let's have a look at what News 24 has to say about this. Alright, so News 24 was literally the only outlet that ran this story, and I have to give credit where credit is due. Karen Morn did a phenomenal job with this article, so I'll happily reference News 24 for this article. Zuma's lawyers say he could never repay his 28.9 million rand state-funded legal bill, even with pension. Right. In 2021, the Supreme Court of Appeal confirmed that Jacob Zuma was not entitled to continued state funding of his corruption trial defense costs and ordered the state attorney to take all reasonable steps to recover the taxpayer funds already spent on these costs. In 2024, the state attorney and presidency launched litigation against Zuma to recover the 28.9 million rand he spent on those legal costs. The former president is adamant he is the victim of the state's financial misconduct. He's always a victim. For somebody that was a former president, you would think that you can't really be a victim if you were elected to the highest position in South Africa. But for some reason, Zuma is always a victim. Former President Zuma's lawyer says he will never be able to pay back the 28.9 million in taxpayers' funds spent on his corruption trial legal costs, even if his presidential pension is forfeited to the state. For starters, Zuma does not have that kind of money, really, and it is very crystal that no state, this guy can't speak English, by the way. It's not me, it's this guy, would ever be able to pay this amount of money. And in other words, to claim this amount of money from a state official is to create an impossibility. Zuma's lawyer stated in heads of arguments filed in the Gauteng High Court in Pretoria. Zuma will never be able to pay this amount, even if generous payments, blah, 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 blah. It's amazing how Zuma can't do this and Zuma can't do that, but yet Zuma was able to completely capture the state, and he was able to get the arms deal going. It's amazing how now suddenly Jacob Zuma isn't capable of doing this or that. But correct me if I'm wrong, didn't he start a political party last year called Mkhonto weSizwe? Did he not start that? Like, we act like Jacob Zuma can't do this. Jacob Zuma doesn't have money. What happened to the hundreds of millions of rands that you got kicked back through Guptas, allegedly? What happened to all of the money that you wasted on defending yourself? Well, now we know that it is actually funded by the taxpayers. And you know what? I think that every single South African will agree that we don't care whether you pay the 28.9 million rand to completion, but give us everything that you have. Why don't we start there? Because after all, you were the one that had the Stalingrad approach. Appeal everything, find fault in everything, spend years in court. Where did you think this money was going to come from? Do you thought it was going to fall from the sky, or you could pick it from a tree? I mean, this is what happens when you don't actually know the worth of money, and that it always just falls into your lap. So, to be fair, I don't expect you to pay back the 28.9 million rand if you say you can't afford to pay it. But give us everything you have. Sell Nkandla. We can start there. Sell that property. Sell all the other properties you have. Maybe look to Dubai, where your son and daughter often visits. Maybe ask them, can't they ask their Gupta buddies over there to, give you some money? that they've got there already stored for you, waiting for you when you eventually evade South Africa, when the court order comes to arrest you. Why don't we just take everything that you have and then we call it quits? How's about that? Oh, but you still, of course, have to face the trials, the corruption case, the arms deal, all of these things you still have to face. But we are happy for you just to pay and give everything that you have right now. We'll allocate like 5 or 10,000 rand a month for you to live off of. I'm not sure what your wives are going to do. They might leave you now that you're not worth anything anymore after you've paid everything back. But good luck with that. Also, I'm not even sure if you know as a taxpayer that we are funding Jacob Zuma and all of his wives. Yeah. We are looking after a former president and his family. And then, of course, the pension that is millions a year. So ultimately, it boils down to the following. I don't want to hear your sad story of how you don't have money and how you didn't know that you will eventually have to pay this. Why were you so easy with spending taxpayers' money when you didn't know that you had to pay it back? But now that you realize you have to pay it back, now suddenly your court proceedings and everything is running smoothly and as quickly as possible so that you don't have to pay the advocate and the attorney and the lawyers so much money. Why now, suddenly when you realize that you have to pay for it yourself, now you want to let things run smoothly? It is pathetic. And of course, the fact that Jacob Zuma once again can't take responsibility, because even in that article, he blames bad advice that he got from people. This man will never ever take accountability for anything. And that is why I don't feel bad that if this bankrupts him, so what? He has bankrupted so many South Africans and their businesses through state capture, through the arms deal, through taking South Africa for a ride for 9 years when he was the president of South Africa. I don't feel bad for him. All of this shit that we are experiencing in South Africa today, since we became a democracy, is because of the things that Jacob Zuma started putting into action. State capture, all of the things like the Expropriation Act, all of these threats that he wanted to implement. These are the things that we are now sitting with in 2025 and is continued now by Cyril Ramaphosa. But it all started with Jacob Zuma. Remember, under Thabo Mbeki, as ignorant as he was with regards to HIV and AIDS, our economy still grew by 6%. When Jacob Zuma took over, that is when things went 49 billion, 70 million, 4. Yeah. Anyway, that is when everything went wrong. So, once again, to reiterate, and I think I speak on behalf of most South Africans when I say this, give us everything you have, and we call it quits. You don't have to settle the 28.9 million. Sell your house, sell all your cars, sell all the cattle you have and all the cows and everything. Sell everything and let's see where we end up. And maybe, we'll take 90% of your pension and leave the rest for you to live off of. I think that is a fair trade considering everything that you've done to this country. But with that being said, you must still face every single charge that has been leveled against you by the state. And maybe, who knows? Maybe taxpayers will start funding you once again sometime in the future when you are in jail. And that's pretty much all I got to say. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please be sure to smash the like button, subscribe to this channel, share this video far and wide. And if you enjoy my content and you enjoy this channel, then please consider becoming a member. You can do so by clicking the join button below. And that's all I got to say. Good luck, Zuma. Till later. Cheers and peace out.
You don't even know me, but every time you see me, you say, I wear my massacre. You don't even know me, but every time you see me, you say, I wear my massacre. I wear my massacre. You don't even know me, but every time you see me, you say, I wear my massacre. I wear my massacre.